is CNN Breaking News.
Hello and welcome to Connect the World. I'm Lynda Kinkade in Atlanta. This hour we have a special look at the people fleeing war, persecution and poverty. First though, to our breaking news. Authorities on the scene of a deadly train collision near Columbia, South Carolina. An Amtrak passenger train traveling from New York to Miami crashed into a freight train overnight. The passenger train had 8 crew members and around 139 passengers on board. Now, the Amtrak engine derailed along with several passenger cars. 2 people have been killed. Around 70 have been transported to hospitals with injuries ranging from scratches to broken bones. Now, this is the 3rd deadly Amtrak crash in less than 2 months. Mary Sciavo, CNN transportation analyst and former Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Transportation, is with us via Skype from Charlotte, North Carolina. Good to have you with us, Mary.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
This deadly collision happened in the middle of the night. What do we know about how it came to be that a passenger train struck a freight train?
Well, that is going to be the question that the National Transportation Safety Board investigators will be asking. In the United States, passenger trains share rails with freight trains. They do not have separate dedicated tracks like in many other countries. For example, in Japan, the Shinkansen or bullet train doesn't share tracks with any other kind of train, and it never meets with surface traffic on the road. In the United States, they do. And the section of track that this Amtrak train was traveling over belonged to CSX, the freight train company of the freight train that it hit. So it shouldn't have been on the track. They shouldn't be on the same track at the same time, but it was raining. It was in the middle of the night, and this track was not equipped with something called positive train control, which is computerized sensors on the track and in the trains that let you know if there's an obstruction on the track.
So are you saying that this Amtrak train would typically be traveling on other train lines?
Yes, in the United States, Amtrak actually owns very little track that it travels on. It owns some of the track that it travels on, for example, in the Northeast Corridor, the trains in New York, Washington, D.C., and those areas. But for the rest of the nation, other than some track on the West Coast in the Washington, Portland, Oregon, and California areas, it travels on freight train tracks. It can't possibly begin to own the track that it travels over because there's just so much track in the United States. So it, if you will, borrows track.
Right. So when we're looking at Amtrak's safety record, this is now the third, this is a 3rd deadly collision. Since December, we had the one last week in Virginia, which left 1 person dead, one in December, which left 3 people dead. What can you tell us about Amtrak's safety record?
Well, and that's a great question because each of those 3 crashes that you mentioned had 3 different causes, but in all cases, they could have been aided by either positive train control, more alert conductors, or better gates to keep vehicles off the tracks. The one in Washington was an overspeed situation. They were doing 60 or 70 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone. The one with the Congress people on board was a garbage truck, went onto the track and didn't clear off in time. And then this one is a collision on the track with another train. And this is, you know, Amtrak has a worse safety record in terms of deaths in the last year than aviation and than commercial aviation in the United States, for example. So it's going to be a big question that the investigators need to find out what's going on.
Wow, that is unbelievable. A worse safety record for deaths than aviation. All right, Mary Sciavo, good to have you with us and great to get your perspective as always. Thank you.
Thank you.